How does a revelation of the holiness of God change us? And in context with what we're talking about this week, how does it change our perspective on turbulent times? Welcome to this, your daily 180 Bible study. We're talking about a confident life in the midst of a very difficult, turbulent situation. It might be the loss of a loved one. It might be the loss of a job. It might be a disease. But the reality is, if you're a faithful child of God, you have the tools to deal with those incredibly difficult, troublesome times. And we're looking at Isaiah chapter 6, verse 1. We see it's the year that King Uzziah died. We see also in verse 1 that Isaiah saw the Lord sitting on a throne, high and exalted. And then beginning at verse 2, we begin to get a glimpse of His holiness. You know, the holiness of God really does transform us. In Exodus chapter 3, Moses had been in the wilderness for 40 years tending sheep. He had left Egypt as a fugitive. Now God appears to him 40 years later, and he sees this burning bush at a distance, a burning bush that is not consumed. And he begins to approach that bush, and he hears these words, "Do not draw near this place. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground." And then listen to verse 6. "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." Now, very important, listen to this. "And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God." And I want you to underline that word, he was afraid. Now, there's such a thing as the fear of God in the sense of reverence, but here I want you to notice that Moses is afraid of God. And you read the rest of the chapter, and I would encourage you to do that. You find out that Moses is going to tell God, "I'm not your man. I'm not the one to do this job you're calling upon me to do." God wants him to go back to Egypt, deliver the children of Israel. Moses is saying, no. And keep in mind, he's afraid of God. But then later on, he does this, and the children of Israel are delivered. And while they're in the wilderness, he's on Mount Sinai, then there's a transformation that we see taking place. And Moses says to God in verse number 18, he says, "Please show me your glory." This man who was once afraid of God is now saying, "I want to see you. I want to have a fuller understanding of who you are." That's what happens when we see the holiness of God. Join us again tomorrow.